She didn't lower her voice. She didn't soften the words. At a crowded restaurant, on a blind date arranged by friends, the billionaire woman looked at the single dad and said, calmly, "I won't sit across from you." People turned. Forks paused midair. And when she explained why, the room fell into a silence that hurt more than laughter. Before we go on, take a quiet second with me. If stories about dignity, judgment, and unexpected truth matter to you, please like this video. Tell me where you're watching from in the comments. And if you enjoy calm, human stories like this, subscribe and stay with us. Now, let's go back to that table. The hostess hesitated when she saw them together, not because of him, because of her. The woman filled the doorway with presence before she filled it with her body. She moved slowly, deliberately, as if space had learned to make room for her. A tailored black coat, simple jewelry, no apology in her posture. People noticed. They always did. Some glanced away quickly. Others stared, pretending not to. Ethan noticed everything and pretended he didn't. He had learned how. He stood when she approached the table, out of habit more than confidence. 38, single father, 2 jobs until recently, 1 child who needed asthma medicine more than excuses. He had shaved twice, nicked his jaw once, and chosen the cleanest shirt he owned. It still smelled faintly of laundry soap and nervous hope. "Eleanor?" he asked. She nodded and sat, placing her bag carefully beside the chair. She didn't smile. She didn't frown either. She studied him the way people studied art they didn't expect to understand. They ordered water. Silence settled in, not awkward yet, just alert. Ethan spoke first. "Thank you for meeting me." "Of course," she said. Her voice was calm, low, controlled. Blind dates are an efficient way to disappoint everyone equally. He smiled faintly. She noticed that too. The waiter arrived. Eleanor ordered without looking at the menu. Ethan followed, embarrassed by his hesitation. He caught the waiter's eye and apologized for the delay. Old reflex. When the waiter left, Eleanor folded her hands on the table. "Before we go any further," she said, "I need to ask you something." Ethan nodded. He had expected questions. Age, work, baggage. "Do you know who I am?" she asked. He blinked. "Your first name and that you hate cilantro. That's what the text said." A flicker crossed her face. Not amusement, relief maybe, or disappointment. It was hard to tell. "Good," she said. "Then we can be honest." She glanced around the room. Linen tablecloths, low lighting, couples leaning toward each other, whispering futures they hoped would behave. A few people had started to notice her. Whispers traveled faster than plates. "I'm not staying," she said. The words landed softly but firmly. Ethan didn't react. He didn't ask why. He simply waited. Years of listening to a child struggle for breath had taught him patience. "I don't usually explain myself, but tonight I will." She met his eyes, not unkindly, not gently either. "You seem like a decent man, and that's exactly the problem." A laugh escaped from somewhere nearby. Someone had been listening. Eleanor ignored it. "If I sit here," she went on, "people will take photos. They will post them. They will ask questions they pretend are curiosity. They will decide what kind of woman I am based on who I'm seen with." Ethan shifted slightly. The chair creaked. He still didn't interrupt. "I'm a very visible woman," she said, "in ways you don't yet understand." A couple at the next table had stopped pretending not to watch. Phones rested face down but ready. "You're a single dad. You live quietly. You disappear when you need to. I don't." Her eyes dropped briefly to his hands, calloused, clean, tired. "They won't judge me for my money. They already do that. They won't judge me for my body. They've done that my whole life."
She looked back up. "They'll judge you." The room seemed to lean in. "They'll say you're using me, or that I'm desperate, or that you're brave for tolerating me." Her jaw tightened. "None of those stories are fair to you." Ethan swallowed, slowly. "I can handle that," he said. She shook her head. "You shouldn't have to." Someone laughed again, louder this time, a sharp sound. Eleanor turned slightly toward it. "I'm ending this," her voice carrying now. "Not because I think I'm better than you." Her pause was deliberate. "But because I know exactly how cruel people become when they think someone like you doesn't deserve someone like me." The words didn't sting, they weighed. The room went quiet. Even the kitchen noise seemed to dull. Ethan stayed seated. "I didn't come here to be protected," he said. "I came here to be honest." She studied him again, longer this time. "And I didn't come here to be brave. I came here to be careful." She stood, smooth, unrushed. Heads turned fully now. No one pretended anymore. "I'm sorry," she said. Not softly, not loudly, precisely. She walked away, alone. No applause followed. No outrage either. Just confusion shifting hands. Ethan finished his water. He didn't rush. He didn't chase her. He paid the bill when it came, though the waiter hesitated, clearly unsure. Ethan nodded once. The waiter placed the receipt down as if setting something fragile. Ethan left a tip larger than necessary, not to prove anything, because he always did. Outside, the night air felt thinner. He stood for a moment, breathing, letting the judgment slide past him like traffic. He didn't know Eleanor was a billionaire. He didn't know her name carried weight in boardrooms and headlines. He didn't know the building across the street belonged to her. All he knew was this. For the first time in years, someone had rejected him to spare him pain. And that realization stayed with him far longer than rejection ever had. Ethan walked home instead of taking the bus. The night air felt colder than it should have, sharp against his face, like it wanted to wake him up. The restaurant lights faded behind him, replaced by dark storefronts and the steady hum of traffic. He kept replaying the moment she stood up, the way her voice didn't shake, the way she chose her words carefully, like each one carried weight she'd learned to respect. At home, the apartment smelled faintly of laundry soap and leftover pasta. Lucy was asleep on the couch, curled around her stuffed rabbit, the babysitter long gone. Ethan carried her to bed, careful not to wake her. He sat beside her for a moment, watching her breathe, slow and even. This was the part of his life no one ever saw on first impressions, the quiet labor, the patience, the choosing again and again to stay steady. The next morning started early. Lucy needed breakfast. Her school project was due. The sink leaked again. Ethan fixed it before work, hands moving automatically, mind still somewhere else. At the construction site, his crew noticed he was quieter than usual. He answered when spoken to. He did his job well. He always did. But the image of Eleanor across the table stayed with him. Not rejection, something heavier, something protective whether he wanted it or not. 3 days later, his phone rang during lunch. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. "Ethan Brooks?" a woman asked. "Yes." "This is Marianne Holt. I work with Eleanor Hart." Ethan paused. He stood up, moving away from the noise of the site. "Okay." "She asked me to reach out, not to change anything, just to pass along a message." He waited. "She wanted you to know that what she said was not about your worth or hers. It was about what happens when people look too closely, without kindness." Ethan leaned against a concrete pillar. Dust clung to his boots. "I understand." There was a brief silence on the line. She also wanted to apologize for how public it felt. "Tell her," Ethan said slowly, "I don't owe her anything." The call ended. He stared at his phone for a moment, then slipped it back into his pocket and returned to work. Across town, Eleanor sat alone in her office, 40 floors above the river, glass walls, clean lines, silence that cost millions to maintain. She had rejected people before, investors, suitors, advisors. None of it had followed her home like this. Ethan's stillness unsettled her, not his words, his restraint. At a board meeting later that week, a director mentioned public perception, headlines, image, the usual concerns. Eleanor listened, nodding, making notes. She'd built this empire by anticipating risk, by protecting herself before damage could happen. And yet she kept thinking of the way Ethan had said, "I can handle that." He hadn't meant the judgment. He'd meant her. 2 weeks passed. Life returned to its shape. Lucy got sick. Ethan missed a day of work. Bills arrived. He paid them. On a Saturday afternoon, he took Lucy to the public library. While she browsed picture books, he scanned the notice board. A flyer caught his eye. Community grant, building renovations, small nonprofits. One name stood out, the Heart Foundation. He frowned slightly. He hadn't known she had one. That evening, Lucy asked, "Are you sad?" He considered lying. Then he shook his head. "Just thinking." "About people?" "Yes." She nodded, satisfied. Children accepted simple truths easily. The following Thursday, Ethan received an email, formal, polite, an invitation to speak at a community roundtable about housing accessibility. His name had been recommended by a local organizer. The event was sponsored by the Heart Foundation. He almost declined. Almost. The room was modest, folding chairs, coffee and paper cups. Eleanor arrived late, slipping into the back, unnoticed by most. Ethan stood at the front, nervous but grounded. He spoke about ramps that didn't get built, about families who slipped through systems quietly, about dignity. He didn't mention her. He didn't need to. Eleanor listened, hands folded. No one was laughing. No one was judging. They were listening. Afterwards, people clapped, softly, respectfully. Ethan stepped down, relieved. He turned, and for the first time since that night, their eyes met again. No table between them, no audience waiting for a spectacle. She approached him slowly. "You didn't have to come," he said. "I wanted to," she replied. They stood there, unsure what to do with the space between them. "I meant what I said," she added, "about protection." "I know." She hesitated. "I don't want to hide forever." Ethan nodded. "I don't want to be anyone's secret." She wouldn't ask you to be. They didn't resolve anything that night. No promises, no romance, just an understanding that something honest had been exchanged, and neither of them could unsee it. Outside, the city moved on, unaware, indifferent. Eleanor watched Ethan walk away with his jacket slung over his shoulder, phone pressed to his ear, as Lucy spoke excitedly about her day. For the first time in years, Eleanor didn't feel alone in a crowded room. And that scared her more than judgment ever had.
The next time Ethan saw Eleanor, it wasn't planned. It was a Tuesday afternoon, gray and thin with rain. Ethan was standing outside Lucy's school, collar turned up, holding a permission slip he had forgotten to sign that morning. Parents clustered in loose groups, phones in hand, conversations half finished. No one looked up. A black sedan rolled to the curb across the street. It didn't stand out because of its shine. It stood out because of how carefully it stopped, like the driver was trained to disappear. Eleanor stepped out. No makeup this time, no tailored statement dress, just a long wool coat, dark slacks, flat shoes. Her hair was pulled back, practical. She looked smaller, not physically, quieter. Ethan noticed before he meant to. She didn't see him at first. She stood there, scanning the building,
uncertain, like someone who had walked into the wrong room and didn't know how to leave without being noticed. Lucy burst through the doors with her backpack half-zipped, waving a drawing. "Dad!" Ethan bent automatically, catching her mid-run. The paper crumpled between them. "I drew you," she said, "and the lady with the big windows." He froze. Eleanor looked up. For a second, neither of them moved. The street noise filled the space. A bus hissed. Someone laughed too loudly. "I didn't know she went here," Eleanor said finally. "She doesn't. This is pickup. Anyone can stand here." Lucy looked between them. "Hi," she said, polite and unafraid. "Hi," Eleanor answered. Her voice softened in a way Ethan hadn't heard before. "That's a beautiful drawing." Lucy beamed, then tugged Ethan's sleeve. "Can we go? I'm hungry." Ethan nodded. "We should." They started to walk. Eleanor stayed where she was. "Ethan," she said. He stopped, didn't turn around. "I didn't come to explain," she said, "or to fix anything." He waited. "I came because I realized something after you left. I don't know how to be seen unless I control the room." He turned then. She met his eyes without flinching. It cost her something, he could tell. "I'm good at power," she said. "I'm terrible at presence." Lucy shifted on her feet. Ethan glanced down. "Give us a second," he told her. She stepped a few feet away, studying a puddle. "You don't owe me anything," Eleanor said quickly. "I know that." "I know," Ethan replied. Silence stretched. It wasn't awkward. It was heavy. "I won't ask for another chance," she said. "I just didn't want the last thing you remembered of me to be that night." He thought of the restaurant, the way the room had leaned in, the way she had carried the judgment so no one else had to. "It won't be," he said. She exhaled, slow and careful. "Good." Lucy came back. "Can we get noodles?" "Yes," Ethan said. Eleanor stepped back. "Take care of her." He nodded once. She got into the car. The door closed without sound. That should have been the end. It wasn't. 2 days later, Ethan's supervisor pulled him aside at the construction site. "You didn't hear this from me," he said, lowering his voice, "but the Orion Building's renovation contract just changed hands." Ethan frowned. "How?" "Owner pulled the bid, new oversight, everything paused for review." Ethan felt something tighten. The Orion. He hadn't thought about the building in weeks, had tried not to. That night, his phone rang again. Unknown number. "This is Eleanor. I won't keep you." He said nothing. "I removed myself from the board vote on the renovation. Conflict of interest." He waited. "They wanted to know why, and I told them the truth, that I didn't trust myself to make fair decisions when people became symbols instead of humans." "That's your business," Ethan said. "Yes," she agreed, "and I'm handling it." A pause. "I also asked them to look at worker safety on the East Wing. There have been complaints." Ethan closed his eyes. He hadn't filed one. He hadn't complained. He never did. "They'll listen to you, not me," he said. "They should listen to both of us," she replied. He almost laughed, not because it was funny, because it was new. "I didn't do this for you," she said. "I did it because I realized how often I decide who deserves comfort based on who can survive discomfort." He said nothing. "I won't call again unless you ask." The line went dead. Weeks passed. Changes happened quietly. Safety rails replaced cracked ones. Overtime pay appeared without reminders. A memo circulated about childcare flexibility for hourly workers. No press, no announcements. Lucy noticed first. "You're not as tired," she said one night. "I'm still tired, just less invisible." At work, the men talked, speculated. No one said Eleanor Hart's name. They didn't have to. One evening, Ethan received an envelope, no return address. Inside was a simple card. I'm learning to stay in rooms without owning them. No signature. He didn't reply, but he kept the card. Months later, at a fundraiser Lucy's school hosted, Ethan saw Eleanor again. She stood near the back, no entourage, no speech. When she caught his eye, she nodded. He nodded back. That was all. The world didn't change overnight. People still stared. Judgments still landed. But something had shifted. Not in her reputation, in his gravity, and hers. Not towards each other, but towards something quieter, something steadier, something that didn't need permission.
Winter came early that year. It settled into the city without ceremony, turning sidewalks brittle and breath visible. Ethan felt it most in the mornings, when he stood at the kitchen sink waiting for the kettle to boil, Lucy still asleep, the apartment quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. The quiet no longer felt empty, it felt earned. Life moved forward in small, stubborn ways. Lucy lost her first tooth. Ethan taped it into a napkin because he couldn't find a container. They laughed about it later, sitting on the couch, the television muted, snow pressing softly against the windows. These were the moments he trusted, the ones that didn't ask anything of him except presence. Eleanor stayed out of his life, not dramatically, not with distance meant to punish. She simply didn't insert herself. The changes she'd started continued without her name attached. The Orion building renovations resumed under stricter oversight. Safety inspectors showed up unannounced. Someone in accounting corrected a payroll error that had existed for years. Ethan noticed because he had learned to notice what didn't used to happen. He never thanked her. She never asked him to. In her world, things were less quiet. Eleanor sat through meetings where men used words like optics and resilience while avoiding her eyes. The press asked about her weight loss, her silence, her new image, as if restraint was a brand strategy. She answered politely. She learned when silence said more. At night, she walked through her apartment barefoot, lights off, the city blinking below her windows. She no longer filled the space with calls or work. She let the rooms stay empty. It unsettled her. That was the point. One afternoon, Eleanor received an email she hadn't expected, from Lucy's school. It was generic, sent to several donors and community partners. A holiday drive, warm coats, supplies, volunteers welcome. Eleanor hovered over the delete button. Then she didn't. The gym smelled like paper and winter coats. Folding tables lined the walls. Parents and volunteers moved around each other with practiced efficiency. Eleanor took a stack of donated scarves and began sorting without speaking. She didn't see Ethan at first. He was helping Lucy with a box, crouched low, patient. She watched the way he listened, the way he never rushed her hands. Lucy looked up and spotted Eleanor. "Dad," she said, "it's the lady with the big windows." Eleanor froze. Ethan straightened slowly. Their eyes met across the room. No surprise, just acknowledgement. "Hi," Lucy said, marching over. "Do you like blue or red?" Eleanor blinked. "Blue," she said, carefully. Lucy handed her a scarf. "This one's warm." "Thank you," Eleanor replied. She meant it more than Lucy could know. Ethan approached. "We're almost done." "I know," Eleanor said. "I won't stay long." She meant it. He could tell. They stood there, awkward but not strained. "She talks about you sometimes," Ethan said, nodding at Lucy. "Not by name." Eleanor smiled faintly. "I'm glad." They worked in silence after that. When it was time to leave, Eleanor gathered her coat. "I'm glad you came," Ethan said. "So am I," she replied. They walked out together. Snow drifted lightly. Lucy skipped ahead. "I won't ask you for anything," Eleanor said as they reached the curb. "But if you ever need something practical, I know how to solve problems." Ethan considered that. "I know," he said. She nodded. No disappointment, no hope pressed into the space. They parted. That night, Eleanor sat alone and realized something had changed again. Not in how people saw her, in how she saw herself when no one was watching. Weeks later, a story broke, not about her body, about her company. A whistleblower, past negligence, quiet settlements, old decisions resurfaced. Eleanor didn't deny it. She didn't spin it. She stood at a podium and said, "I benefited from systems that didn't protect people. I didn't look closely enough. I'm looking now." The market reacted badly. She lost money, influence, invitations. She went home and sat on the floor. Across the city, Ethan watched the news in the background while Lucy colored. He listened without watching. "She sounds sad," Lucy said. "She sounds honest," Ethan replied. The next day, Eleanor's assistant handed her a stack of resignation letters, advisors leaving, partners distancing themselves. "You don't have to go through with this," the assistant said quietly. Eleanor looked out the window. "I already am." That evening, she found the card Ethan had kept months ago, returned in an envelope without explanation. Inside, a note. "You stayed." No signature. She sat with it for a long time. For the first time in years, Eleanor Aliotte Hart didn't feel alone in a room full of consequences. She felt grounded. And somewhere between loss and clarity, something steadier than power began to take shape. Ethan didn't expect to hear from her again. That was the truth he carried into the weeks that followed. Life narrowed back down to its essentials. Morning alarms, school drop-offs, workdays are measured in hours instead of meaning. Lucy asked fewer questions now, or maybe he just noticed the quiet more. He didn't replay the date anymore. Not the words, not the looks. Some moments don't ask to be fixed. They ask to be accepted. The letter came on a Tuesday. No return address. Thick paper, heavy in his hands. He opened it at the kitchen table while Lucy colored beside him, her feet swinging, humming to herself. "Ethan, I won't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I owe you clarity." He read slowly. "What I said that night wasn't about you. It was about fear. I've lived my life watched, measured, judged, my body, my money, my worth. I learned to protect myself by rejecting first." He paused, folded the page once, then kept reading. "You showed up honestly, quietly, with dignity, and that frightened me more than cruelty ever could. I rejected you because you didn't need me. That was my mistake." Ethan finished the letter without moving. No rush, no reaction. Lucy looked up. "Bad news?" "No," he said. "Just old." She nodded, satisfied, and went back to coloring. Across the city, Eleanor stood alone in her office. 40 floors above the river, glass walls, clean lines, silence that cost money to maintain. She had made her announcement an hour earlier. 6 months away from the company. No press, no interviews, no appearances. The board hadn't liked it, but they respected it. When the room emptied, she stayed behind. Not triumphant, not relieved, just still. She walked home that night instead of calling a car, felt the weight of her body move through space without apology. Weeks passed. Then, one afternoon, Eleanor sat in a small park near the river, watching a man help his daughter with a loose shoelace. It wasn't Ethan, but it didn't need to be. She understood now what she had run from. Back at the construction site, Ethan watched Lucy climb the steps of the bus. She waved, he waved back. Same ritual, same promise. He felt lighter than he had in years, not because someone had chosen him, but because he had never stopped choosing himself. That night, he folded the letter one last time and placed it in a drawer, not as proof, as closure. Some stories don't end with people together. They end with people whole. And that was enough.